Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series, The Lord of Chaos.
Look at me go!
Yeah, look at you go. You are almost halfway through this series.
Though I did take about a month off of reading Wheel of Time.
Yeah, well sometimes you need to. It's a long series.
It's very long and they're all very, once you're in it, it's a very dense story, so.
Yeah, I don't
Not
know.
unenjoyable, but dense, so it's...
I read it all back to back and it was like the only thing I read over a year when I last read it, but I don't know if that's how I would recommend it to other people. Like maybe you need to take breaks. I don't know. I feel like in my case, if I had stopped halfway through, it would all fallen out of my head, but that's just me.
I mean, it all falls out of my head anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I will say though, it does help the closer in succession I read them, just because of how the books are and the languaging and knowing that I'm like, okay, this is where we're going. This is how the books roll. And specifically the books definitely seem to have a cycle of kind of how they're written. And so I'm just like, okay, yeah, I remember this cycle. I know I'm gonna not know who anyone is in the prologue and it's gonna annoy me. And then we're gonna get to my friends and then we're gonna have some adventures and there's gonna be a lot of emotional stuff and then an adventure at the end. So yeah, I have already started the next one. So because I was in the mindset, so we'll see how this next book goes. Yeah, book 6.
Book 6.
The first thing that came to my head was, let's talk about Rent, baby.
Okay.
Why not? Anywho. I should talk about the book?
I think you probably should. I guess we could... No.
Overall?
I mean, if you have something that you want to say about the book overall, then absolutely go ahead. But I was just going to go ahead and say, we're 6 books into a 14-book series. There's going to be spoilers.
There's going to be spoilers.
It's not. We're not doing a spoiler. We're not doing a spoiler-free section.
I will say this book was a little slower, I feel like, than the last few. The last few were pretty action-packed, the last 2 to 3.
Sure.
I think. And I can't even remember the one before this. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. This one definitely felt a little bit slower, which I think was another reason that it took me a minute to get into it. But once I got into it, I didn't mind what the slowness was about, because there was a lot of growth and change in character development and a lot of development within the relationships of the characters, and that's the kind of stuff that I really like.
Yeah.
So I did really like this book overall. I very much enjoyed it, even though it was tooth and nail to get me to start reading it.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this, I fully feel like I'm reading the books wrong. I feel like the little voice in the back of my head tells me I'm not smart enough to read these books. And that's a little Liz thing. That's I've never really felt like I'm the right brand of smart. I have to prove that I'm smart. And these books are very dense. And they're very, Robert Jordan does not give you any help. He is this is the people. Did you remember him? Great. This is a new person. You should know that you haven't met them before, but maybe you have. But now they're a POV chapter, so get it together. And so reading these books, I think, especially taking some time off, I was like, I can't do this because I just don't feel like I have the intelligence to read these books. But I mean, you even said to me what are you talking about? There's no right way.
There's no right way to read any book.
I've always had trouble with recall and names, and in real life though, I'm very good with names.
I'm terrible with names. In real life, I'm hilariously terrible with names. I'm great with them in books though.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I think I need a little bit of help. I'm used to a style of book, and to be fair, even the books that I read, the Sarah J. Maas Agatar books, I don't remember everyone's name. I forget who the, Lord and Lady are, blah, blah, blah. And then I read it again. I'm like, oh yeah, those guys. So that's just something that I struggle with in general. And I found that as kind of a negative feeling going back into reading these books, because
I think it's interesting that you don't have a negative feeling about that with other books that you read, but you have a negative feeling about it with these books.
Because I feel like these are smart people books.
No.
I don't know. I don't know. It's the same when I read The Lord of the Rings when I was young. I actually never finished. I didn't read The Return of the King. Shame on me. But when I read...
our channel's canceled now.
It's fully canceled. Bad book people. Terrible book people.
Turn it off.
I read the first 2 in The Hobbit. I never felt that... Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little, thing that I have about myself, a little insecurity that I have about myself that I don't know, not smart enough to read. I think Lord of the Rings
is harder to read than Wheel of Time.
But that's only 3 books at least.
Personally, yeah. It's
and they're
shorter,
not
but
900 pages
It took me, the last time I read Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, it was a few years ago. It took me like a year, which is how long it took me to read.
I would love to reread them, which maybe I should after I read Wheel of Time, because I'm in that like slightly more elevated language. Not quite.
I'm not going to give you that to read. Whatever I give you next to read, I'm going to give you something very lighter.
No, for sure. But I want to read it. I do want to read it because I know I like those stories. But anywho, that's like an insecurity I have about these books. So I think that's something that held me off from going in. And then whilst I've been listening to this book I listened to 98% of it because it just was better that way. Which I will say does not help with name recall because so many of the names sound the same and I don't get to see them written out. Mm-hmm. But it does allow me to read it in the way that is helpful to me, aka like I'm not taking in every single thing that happens. When I read on a page, sometimes I will like go back over passages again and again and again, and I will listen to some things multiple times, but for the most part, I'm just kind of letting it happen and enjoying what I enjoy out of it. Yeah. So that's my experience with the Lord of Chaos. My first note, and I don't think I can curse, I said, who the F are these people? Because the prologues always seem to start with like the baddies. It's like, we're in the baddie council, and they're all mad about stuff. And it was just, to be honest, don't even remember what happened in the prologue. But that was my experience with the prologue. I was like, what is happening? And then my first note, and this will go into, in general, I guess I will say, there are quite a few characters that I have completely changed my mind on. Not completely, but like definitely changed my mind on. And I think part of that is because there's been a lot of character growth from the beginning till now. Like, Rand, I love Rand. I do love Rand. I feel really bad for Rand. I think, but again, I also think
Look at all that growth.
Look at all that growth. I mean, he's had a lot of growth. And what's funny now is his, like, little voice in the back of his head that was basically what just would frustrate me is just Rand in the beginning was this, like, cycle of, like, the same thing over and over and over and over again. Now that's just Lews Therin in his head. But Lews Therin has become this, like, creepy little Gollum gremlin in the back of his head. And anytime, like, something happens he doesn't like, he's like, kill them. And I find that very entertaining. Mm-hmm. Whereas Rand's a bit more level-headed. He's carrying a lot and in a good way. I think he's doing a good job of it anyways. So I've had a big flip with my relationship with
Remember how many books in a row you were like, oh, God, I just hate Rand?
Yeah, I did. But again, there was nothing. It was the same. It was one note. He was just repeating over and over and over again, angsty teen, period. There's nothing beyond that. And now, especially that I've gotten to know him a little bit more and I've been in his head a little bit more, I see who Rand is and I like that. That's what I like out of a book. I want to get into the nitty gritty. I want to get into these characters. I want to know what makes them act the way that they do. And I think with Rand, I feel really bad for him. I see the way that the like madness is played out with him having this other voice in his head and also carrying so much on his shoulders, kind of not knowing what he's doing with, the power because there's really not a perfect teacher for him, but he's found his way, to do that. And I like had bad respect for the pardon that he gave for all of the men who can channel.
Yes, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this is dope. This is what we need to do. Like, this is great.
I mean, and also just because he wants his own army, but we'll just kind of forget about that part.
Well, and this is, I mean, I guess I could skip ahead. I laughed Brand was so excited to, like, brand these boys. Because he kind of made his little school, and, I thought was great, because obviously, like, he's kind of learning as they're learning, and I thought that was really cool. But it was just so funny. There was like this whole scene between him and Taim. And I think it's Taim. Mazrim Taim.
Taim? I thought it was T-A-I-M, but you would know the pronunciations better than me.
They say it like Taim.
Okay, great. Then that.
I hope that's how it is. But that's his like bro. That's like his head teacher in the Black Tower, I think. It's the Black Tower or the Dark Tower. I don't remember. Which I thought was funny because Rand's reaction was very much of like, okay, I guess we'll go with it. Cool. Which just to me, I was like, boys, you are not helping yourself. Because people already think that you're going to be bad if you have access to the power. So, like, don't be naming it like the Dark Tower. Like, this is a mess. But anywho, Rand was like so excited. He's like, yeah, cool, got this. They're going to have a name. They're going to be called, I forget. The Ashaman. And he's like, literally like so pumped about it. He's like, he gives this whole speech and there's like crickets. And he's like, well, that man. Like, I just like, this
no
is
one's
so
even
cool.
excited about it.
You're like, not even excited. Like, not even excited about it. Which I thought was very funny. Also, Rand has quite a few of those moments in this book, which are like, I'm like, in my head, I think are funny, but I'm like, was this supposed to be comical? And there's a moment in the beginning where the Aiel are joking with him, and they're like, what, you don't got jokes? And he, like, gives them this long joke about, like, a horse and and no one gets it.
Yeah. Wetlander humor.
Literally Wetlander. And they're like, what happened to the duck? Or I don't even remember what it is, but they're, like, talking to each other about it. He's just like, I can't. And I thought that was literally brilliant.
Can't with these people.
I can't.
Is there anything that happened to Rand in this book that you particularly want to talk about, regardless of like where and when it happened?
He got shoved in a box.
Yeah.
Poor Rand got shoved in a box.
Yeah. He has a complicated relationship with those pesky Aes Sedai, does he
I know
not?
he does. And I was a little sad because, like, well, he doesn't know yet that Egwene has been named
The Amyrlin
Seat.
of the Rebel Aes Sedai.
Which we'll get back to. Which I love that there's Rebel Aes Sedai, but also within the Rebels, all kinds of stuff. So it very much feels like we're going to get to the point, the Kylo Ren point of, like, let's just blow it up, start all over, because you got the Rebels who are like, we're good, and then they're doing so much, anyways, side quest. But yeah, Rand got shoved in a box, poor buddy. Poor little buddy. He was so mad, and then it turned him against the Aes Sedai, which I very much understand.
He was already kind of...
He very much was, but now he's like, no. Like, there's no
and I mean,
questions.
very justifiably.
100% very justifiably. He's like, I will never trust an Aes Sedai again, which will be interesting, coming into him finding out that his bestie from birth, basically, his kind of betrothed at one point in his life, Egwene,
yes,
is now the Amyrlin Seat.
Yeah,
Elaine is fully Aes Sedai,
fully Aes Sedai.
Egwene, as she got named Aes Sedai, named her friends also, or as Amyrlin Seat, she named her friends Aes Sedai, which I was like, dope. Yeah, of course, gotta do that.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting, and but also so much happens to him from them over this book. What?
You're like, I know what happens. It'll be interesting.
I do, but it's so interesting over the course of this book. Like, he also gets bonded against his will. Like,
that sucked. That really sucked.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like,
and they're just like,
oh well, can't do anything about it.
I will say it does kind of help him in the end, because Alana knows how to find him.
That is true.
When they need to save
him.
But true. It is also like, that's not cool, bro.
No.
Not cool at all. That super sucks.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's very much kind of what I was saying of I find the Aes Sedai so intriguing and so interesting, especially because we do have this, like, we are a force for good, but then they also are a force for power and control. And the way that you see some people take that on is like, are you actually doing good anymore? Because now you're just doing bad, but you think you're doing so much good that it's actually doing harm to people. Like, there's no in between. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like seeing Elida, who's like, oh no, I fully know how to make everything right. She's not like, I want to murder people. Like, it's not like a black and white, like, this is about, I mean, she is kind of like a crony, mean witch character type of a vibe, like a caricature, but she thinks she's doing what is right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because then we have the, like, rebel Aes Sedai who also think they're doing what is right. And me as a reader, I'm like, yeah, no, totally on their team. But then there's little behaviors within that I'm like, this is pushing, like, you guys are going in the, like, route of a tyrant, like, you're going in that, like, over-controlled, like, Alana being, bonding Rand. So that way, essentially, they had a leash on him.
Yes.
Which sucks.
Yeah. I mean, all of that leads to it making sense towards, like, the end once they do free him. And he, like, kind of inadvertently stills those.
Yeah, he stills them, and then he makes everyone else
kneel and swear to him. And I think Robert Jordan does a good job of, like, showing Rand's growth, but also, of course, we always know that there is the madness that he is fighting, and with Luce Theron and everything like that. And it's very interesting because the Aes Sedai who steal him, there's all those Aes Sedai that think, like, what we need to do to get the Dragon Reborn to do what he needs to do is just put him in a box, literally, in this case, until the final battle, and then we'll just shove him out there.
Yeah.
And, like
he's gonna
and if we don't do that, he's gonna, like, blow up and destroy the world, or break the world. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're shoving him in a box, and he's losing his mind, obviously, because he's
and also
torturing
beating him, fully torturing him.
It's really interesting because no one is 100% good, even our protagonist, who is like...
Which is why I think now that I'm into this series, I'm having much more enjoyment with the characters, because I would very much love to see the nuance, the little nitty gritty of like, okay, there's not one right way and one wrong way. It's much more interesting to see everyone's colors and how the behaviors change things, except for the White Cloaks. They're a one note. They're one note. They suck. Everything about them sucks. Yeah. They super suck. Which I also find them very boring to read because they're horrible. They are terrible people. And that is it. There is no, like, justification. There is no, like...
They're always bad.
And even, like, when we get the POVs in the, like, White Cloak characters, everything they say is just, like, negative, 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 negative. There's not, like, I'm doing this because. It's just, like, no. Rand. Witches. Meh. But they've actually... Yeah, they suck. I hate them.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
I hate them. I don't like reading about them. I find them atrocious and also annoying. Oh, I had an... about Rand and the Aiel. This is just the little comedy moments that I find, because I really lean into those. Because that to me is like the humanness of these characters, of the Aiel telling Rand how to flirt. Because they're like, obviously you and Aviendha are totally in love.
Yes.
And he's like, shut up. And they're just,
no,
shut up, guys.
We're not.
Guys, and they're like, they like don't understand why like they're like not together. And then what did they say? It was like, they were like, you know, just like, we know you like sleep in the same room, like dance a little while you undress. Just give her a little dance. And then the other one, like, it's like the end of this like whole thing. They're like, just like dance a little, and like, you know, like give her a little bit of this. And they're like, can you blush?
Can you make yourself blush?
Can you blush? Because that's cute. And I just think that's so funny, and seeing this like, and those are the moments I love having, those little moments, because otherwise it's so serious. Yeah. And everything that Rand is going through is so serious. And that's where I started to fall in love with this character, because I'm like, there are these little isms, this humanness to him and his relationships that are just great. And I guess then we can talk about his relationships, because boy, oh boy, are these women trying so hard.
Oh, they're thirsty for him.
They are throwing
They're parched, and Rand is the only drink they want.
Game at him.
Oh, yeah.
Min laid it out. Min was like, I'm gonna sit on your lap, like, so good. And what I really love is that there's Aviendha, there's Elaine, and there's Min. Min and Elaine had talked and know that they're both in love with Rand. And then in the like latter half of this book, Aviendha and Elaine talk.
Has to be like, I slept with him.
And
so
she's
sorry.
like, and what I love the most about it is like there is little to no jealousy. There is jealousy, because of course there's going to be jealousy. But more so than anything, between these three women who are very good friends, there's respect. And there's this like love you. I'm not turning you into a villain. I'm jealous, but I'm not turning you into a villain. You're someone I respect. Let's just like see what happens, essentially. Of like, and with that, all of them are just giving him their A game. Like, and I just find that so refreshing, because I find so often that, especially in like modern novels and things, I've talked about this many times before, like pitting women against each other is like the way, you know, of that like, oh, I'm jealous. Behavior is this woman's fault. I'm mad at this other woman. Rather than being like, yeah, cool, we're attracted to the same guy. That sucks. Like, I love you, but like, at some point he's gonna pick one, and like, we just gotta see who it is. In the meantime, I'm gonna spit some game at him. I also think Elaine's reaction to Aviendha being like, yeah, blah blah blah, I love him. I'm so sorry. Like, you're my sister. This is great. I slept with him, and like maybe, you know, whatever. And Elaine's like, yeah, that sucks. Wait, what? I'm sorry. What?
What was that last bit?
You had sex with him? I'm sorry. And then she was like, I guess I just have to be fine with that, and like moved forward. And then Aviendha's like, well, I guess like we could be sister wives. And Elaine's like, what are you talking about? Be normal. Like, this is crazy. I'm not doing that. Like, love you. Stop it. What? And she's like, I don't know. And I find that situation to be written really well, because I was expecting myself to get very, very frustrated with it by like jealousy and competition between these three characters that I love. Honestly, I love those girls so much. But there's truly not any of that. Who knows what will...
Yeah, who do you think he will end up with?
I think it's Aviendha.
Yeah?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, why? You just think...
I don't know. There was something about when their relationship started to roll out. There's something about it that felt the most real to me. The most, like, the two of them made sense.
Sure.
Elaine, hot. Duh.
Obviously,
like,
yes.
They're both hot. Elaine is also very smart, but I also think Elaine has so much to do. Like, Elaine's journey, she's got a lot of...
The queen.
Beyond her being queen, even just, like, the way she walks through life is, like, very determined and purposeful. And I feel like Rand would hold her back, and I think she knows that. So I see her pursuing, but she now in her mind has been like, well, I'm gonna make him my warder, of course. And like again, like, which she doesn't know that Alana Bond or no, she's gonna be really mad. And Min, he friend zoned her so hard. Like multiple sentences were like, well, you're my friend. And then she's like, that's when she started spitting her A game, which I thought was phenomenal. She was like, oh, I'm your friend, right? Like put out all her womanly wiles and like keeps joking with him and like didn't actually say like I'm attracted to you, but just like literally, like I said, spit her best game at him. And there was a point where he's just like, wait a minute, is she hot? Like, wait a minute.
I'm so confused.
I kind of like how her butt feels on my lap. Is she hot? Look at those pants she's wearing. Damn.
Look at those pants.
Look at those pants. Yeah, and so I feel like but I don't know, maybe that will end up leading to them having the best relationship. But now they also do have some trauma bonding because she was also stolen with him.
Yeah,
so I'm sure that's going to lead to a deeper relationship. Obviously,
maybe that's
it already has.
Maybe that's her in.
Maybe that's her in. I mean, I think she's already kind of in. I think they're all in.
Now that Rand has realized.
Rand has had plenty of threesome dreams about her, about all of them at some point in his life. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And also, speaking of dreams, my girlie Egwene.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of sex dreams, Egwene has had a really fun journey. She had a really fun journey in this book because she was. I got to see her with all of literally made Amaryl and Seed, but I got to see her with all of the like different sects of people that are here,
sure.
Which I thought was really cool, and I think she's probably one of my favorite characters, like top favorite characters.
Yeah.
I just find the way that she moves through life admirable. Of like, and I can relate to kind of how her head works and like how she speaks to herself in her head, and I love how powerful she's become in the dream world. Like that is her domain, and I think I do love her sex dreams with Gawain. I think that is honestly so great. And I also love that
she's like, yeah, I guess I'm into this. Like she gets trapped in it, and then she's like, yeah, this isn't so bad.
She literally gets trapped. She gets pulled into his dream. And afterwards, like, asked the wise one, she's like, because she's not supposed to be there. So she's like, is there a way that someone could get, like, pulled into someone else's dream? They're like, love. And she's like, oh, shit. Oh, damn. Okay. But I do think that whole scene, honestly, was, again, kind of funny to me because she's in his dream. He was dreaming about Egwene, but Egwene happens to be in the dreamland, Egwene herself, and not Dream Egwene. But Egwene herself gets trapped in Dream Egwene's body because he's controlling this dream, essentially. And I thought that whole scene was, first of all, comical and a little sexy, which I love a sexy moment.
I was going to say, this seems like a...
It was right up my alley. It was right up my alley.
The relationships really would have gotten
it was honestly, so it was more comical than it was sexy, though, because... he kept redoing it.
Yes,
like, she kept reliving this moment, being like, what happened? Why am I here again? Because he'd be like, no, that sucked. No, I gotta try that again.
No,
but
she'd like, never say yes to that. Hold on.
Yeah, he gotta be like, I love you more than the flowers. No, shit, that sucks. Okay. And then, so, like, watching him redo it multiple times, I thought was very funny. And then Egwene at one point, like, figures that she finds that she cannot get herself out of this body. And he starts doing some stuff. And she's like, I guess. Might as well. And I think that's very funny. And also, it was honestly probably the most explicit description we got without having an explicit description. Because there's one point where he's like kneeling before her with his head between her legs or something. I was like, oh! Egwene's loving it. I love that for her. Yes, and then they see each other in real life and immediately are like, I love you too. And I'm like, I don't know that you've actually spent any time together, but okay, sure, I guess.
But the sex is great.
But apparently the dream sex is they don't have real life sex. No. They kiss and nuzzle a lot. They have their little trysts. But a lot of dream sex for Egwene, which is great. I mean, she's the Lord of the Dreams, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then that leads to her then being called by the Aes Sedai to come meet them in their rebel base. And then she has to do the whole toe with the...
Oh, yes, sure.
It is toe.
I didn't, yes.
The toe. Because she has toe, or whatever. I'm misphrasing it. With the Aiel Wise Woman, which... I find her the final result of her having this kind of like really aggressive and abusive moment with these women, it was like her being like accepted as Aiel essentially, and Egwene even admitting to herself of being like, yeah, no, I'm an Aiel, which I thought that was cool, and especially to kind of have the split between her and Rand having a similar experience of like bringing these people together in a way of like and having so much of that experience with this culture and then bringing it into their lives, which then brings it into the culture of where they are. But there's just a lot of beating the crap out of people.
A lot of spanking. Physical abuse.
So much spanking. But at least we didn't like talk about it too much. I don't know. It's you know, I understand what the drive for this particular moment was of her being like, this is how, because she's lied to us about being Aes Sedai, this is how we are forgiving her for it. Basically, it's like a purge. I don't think we need to beat people, but
and that's why you're not an Aiel.
That's why I'm not an Aiel. But Egwene doesn't beat people either, and she's now kind of an accepted Aiel. I would love to be a Dreamwalker. Oh man,
that'd be fun.
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Then we get to see her go back to the rebels. Gets named Amaryllis Seed. And what's funny is they think they can control her.
They think they're gonna control her.
And what's hilarious is like I know Egwene.
It's not gonna go that way.
That's not gonna happen for you. No. She's way smarter than you think she is. She's way smarter than you.
Stronger than you. So.
Yeah, Shiriam Sedai is kind of a manipulator. Big time manipulator. They very much all are. You're
that's
right.
like their thing.
That's why it will be interesting to see what happens with Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene. Like how they take on this, you know, Aes Sedai literal, what do they call the thing? Stole. Mm-hmm. And how that shapes them. Yeah. You know, because obviously this power has shaped these other women in good ways and also in negative ways. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how these girls take that on. Yeah. And then speaking of the girls, Nynaeve figuring out how to unstill people because she's brilliant.
Big moment.
Big moment, really cool moment.
Accidental.
Also hilarious because like Nynaeve, and I find this like the description of Nynaeve, like the way that Nynaeve is as a character to be so interesting of like she is so sure of herself. She is very sassy. She like is very realistic and very powerful, like a very powerful woman. And yet, in order for her to use her power, she always trips into these big discoveries, which I find humanizes her a lot to me. And I really like Nynaeve. I'm sure people probably don't. I do think I can see her being a frustrating character.
I would, yes.
But I like her. But again, that's because I can see, like, I think it's to see her, like, she's had this leadership role for a very long time. She is very smart.
Yes.
She's a wilder. She figured out how to use the power without knowing she was actually using the power. She's obviously a very powerful person. And so I think seeing her kind of hiccup through it, not being able to do it perfectly like everyone else, is so humanizing. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I really like about the character. It's more relatable. You know, if she's not perfect. She's not perfect at everything. And that frustrates her. And I can understand her frustration with it. And I do think, and I knew someone was going to figure out how to unstill people. There was enough, like, winked at throughout these, like, past books after Sulan specifically was stilled, that I was like, we're gonna figure this out. Like, someone's gonna help it. And Nynaeve did it accidentally.
On Logain.
Whoopsie-doos! So Logain's an interesting character, too. I'd like to get more of him. We don't really get a lot of him. Yeah, and what I do think is very funny is once again the Aes Sedai, being the manipulators that they are, kind of bring Nynaeve into this thing, like, as if she thinks she's going to get punished for doing something. And then it really was just to make her angry so that they could get down to the fact that she had the power to do this. And she figures it out right as she gets in here. She's like, oh, fine, okay. And like unstills Suan Sanche.
That's one of those scenes that like is still crystal clear in my mind.
Yeah, it was a brilliant scene.
From the series. It's so quintessential, like the core of the character. She is like from the very beginning, the healer and the angry healer, which is already like a counterintuitive thing. And so it's such a great... I don't know if culmination is the right word, but kind of a culmination of like her character and who she is truly at her heart, as well as like what she is. And the fact that she is seen by all these other women, regardless of how they feel about it, she is understood at least on that level. And so it's such an interesting, it's such a great scene. It made me laugh.
No, same. Me too.
It always makes me giggle when I think about it.
Well, and especially like the way that she figures it out at the end. She's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Just being like dicks to her. Being all real petty.
Such jerks. And eventually it leads to her. And I mean, but then you also like the beautiful results of that.
Yeah.
And Suan is so grateful and thankful to her. But then also immediately all the Aes Sedai are like, oh, I could have done it this way, and I could have done it this way. Like, and Nynaeve's like, not even a thank you, like, not even a like, you're so awesome. Like, they're like, go clean the dishes. She's like, excuse me? I just figured out something amazing. And you're not even excited about it? Great. It's kind of like Rand in his Ashaman. He's like, nothing.
Nothing?
Great. Cool.
I got all these jackets.
These matching jackets. Just really into branding right now. Yeah. So, yeah, that was really exciting for Nynaeve. Yeah, I'm intrigued for her to see Lan again. There was a sneaky little scene thrown in there in which Lan is bonded by another Aes Sedai.
Yes.
Yeah, Lan getting bonded in the woods. I don't even remember. This is the problem. There's so many Aes Sedai, and now we're to the point where they get, like, POV moments, and I don't know who any of these people are. I truly just don't. Because there's so many, like, and this is, again, where I start to feel kind of, like, stupid. Of, like, but this is definitely, I've realized how Robert Jordan writes. It's not necessarily that I need to know who this person is. It's just like, yeah, they're here now. This is blah, blah. And I'm like, but me reading it, I'm like, what did I miss? And it's not. Anywho, yeah, Lan gets bonded. That's all we get, is he, like, comes out of the woods, and she's like, he looks like crap. And so that'll be interesting. Nynaeve would be so mad. She'll be so mad. I want to talk about Mat.
I love Mat.
You know
how
Matt.
I feel about Mat.
I find Mat is such an interesting character. I do find him very funny.
That's why I love him.
Especially when it comes to, like I wrote down, like, with him and women, literally it doesn't matter what he does, but he's like, obviously I'm amazing with women. And
which is far cry from the beginning where they were all like, well, Matt.
Well, and they still say that. He'll be like, you need to talk to Perrin. And then Perrin's like, you need to talk to Rand. Or like, you need to talk. They all think that the others are better. But I will say, it's more of like whenever Mat is like spitting game, he's like, that was my best stuff. I absolutely nailed it. Like, nailed it. Which I think is very funny, because then also leads to him getting frustrated because he is so overconfident in himself. And it also comes out with his friends, especially when he goes to the scene where he encounters Egwene after she has been named Emerald's Seat. Is so ridiculous. It is the most mansplainy thing I have ever read in my life, because he comes in and closes the door and is like, what are you playing at? You need to stop doing this. Like, stop pretending. You're going to get yourselves killed. I'll get us out of here. Shut up. Stop talking. Nynaeve, you're a mess. Elaine, just what are you doing? Wayne, you have to stop pretending. This is such an... What? Stop. Why are you talking to me? I need to fix this. I fix this. Okay, this is the plan. Like, literally, like, not giving them a chance. Matt coming in and being like, I am the man. I will fix it. You're obviously all idiots. I got
hysterical
this.
Women.
But I do think it's funny, because then there's a part of that I like love a little bit about Matt, because he loves them.
Yeah.
Like, that is Matt's, like, how I'm taking care of people, is like, I obviously know best. They're all a disaster, so I gotta fix it. I gotta save the day. I got this. Like, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm really annoyed with it.
Yes.
But I love you so much that I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna save your lives.
He will always show up. He will always complain about it.
He will always complain for every single one of his friends. He's like, Rand friggin' needs me to fight this battle. Okay. I will say I do, I find his journey with his past lives to be very intriguing.
Yeah.
Of how they just kind of pop through.
Yeah.
And he's kind of gotten to a point now where he's less annoyed by them, which I actually find kind of nice because I am so intrigued.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know more about these memories that he has. And we get little snippets. Even there was a scene where he was like dancing with some girl where he's like, nailed it. Dancing
Absolutely
with some
nailed
girl.
it.
Absolutely slayed it. She's my girl. Where he's like dancing with her and he kind of slips into this other like ball or celebration that he was, you know, one of his past lives.
Yeah.
He's like dancing and there are these characters and I just, give me more of that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, so I did find that funny when the girls put him in his place. And this is like the same thing that happened when he like saved them from the Shanshan. He like they like had already figured it out and like gotten Egwene
Thank God
free.
I'm here.
And he's like, "You're so welcome." Like busts into an unlocked door that like is already like they've figured it out. And this was a very like parallel scene that I thought was very funny.
He always comes around though. He's like, okay, so you are the Emerald Seed. None of these people are respecting you enough. So I'm gonna be really like very.
Yeah, he's like, well, I think that's like Matt. He's like, he has to justify it.
No,
in his
okay,
brain.
so if you're the Emerald, then fine.
Then
These
this
people
is-
need to be
they
treating
need
you
to be
better, and
nice
so
to you.
I'm gonna set an example
Yeah.
by being way over the top.
I love Matt because Matt loves so hard. He
does,
really loves so hard. He is a pompous idiot, but he is a lover. And I find that very
Oh boy,
delightful.
is he!
Oh boy,
Yeah.
is he. And he thinks he is too. But he loves his people. He loves his people. And his little buddy Oliver that he's kind of adopted.
I like the band, his whole crew.
The crew.
Yeah.
Definitely a motley crew.
Mhm.
And
But yes,
Matt
Oliver's very
is not happy that he's like leading them.
No,
but
he
that's
doesn't
just
want
what he's
people to
doing.
follow him.
He does not.
He just wants to be left alone.
He just wants a girl on his lap.
Yeah, he wants a girl to bounce on his knee.
And
It's
start to
whatever
dance.
it
He
is.
does like to give him a twirl around the dance floor.
Yes,
He loves
twirl
at
around
least
the dance
they're getting something out of it. And he wants to gamble. That's
He's
just
a
really what he
peacock.
wants to do.
He's just a
He
peacock.
is.
He really is.
He's a mess. He's
Yeah.
a mess. He he's an idiot, but I do enjoy him. I
Yeah.
enjoy him a lot. You know who I do not enjoy? Perrin and Faile.
Here we go.
This is another characters that I have completely flipped my opinions on because I really loved Perrin in the beginning, and I don't dislike Perrin, but I think he's a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
Like the most idiot of all idiots, and that was very much it was written this time around of how much of an idiot he is. I will get to that quote in a minute, but Faile is horrible. I hate anytime she's on the page. I don't want to read it. There's nothing about her in these past, I guess, because she wasn't really in the last book, but in the book prior, I liked her at first because I was like, oh cool, a like, you know, badass
Female hunter of the horn,
which
yeah.
I'm always like for. And she definitely like gave no crap, like put Perrin in his place, put everyone in his place, because she's like, I know you think I'm a girl, but like I got this, which that's always kind of the character that I like. But now that she's in this relationship with Perrin, she has flipped to disgustingly jealous, manipulative, competitive female, and it's horrendous. Like, I just hate it. I hate it. I don't want to read it. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to know anything about it. There's no redeeming qualities that have been given to me of this character.
Yeah.
Anymore. Like, it's painful to read. And then we get to Perrin of just in complete denial of her behavior. There's a point at the end where Loial, God bless that we got more of Loial in this book, because we haven't been getting him, and Loial's betrothed is coming after him, and he's like freaked out about it, but then he's also like, man, she's so hot.
She's man, I don't want to get dragged back to the steady, but you see her? Man, she's hot.
Do you see those ears?
You see those ears?
Damn, boy. And then so he's asking Perrin, advice of like, what happens? What's marriage like? What's it like to be in a relationship? And Perrin's giving him all
ask
this
the
stuff.
person who is in the worst relationship that you know.
Well, and what's funny is Loial even like admits that and like says that to him. He's like, well, are all women jealous like that? And Perrin literally says, what do you mean jealous? I was like, oh no. And that's when I lost it. I was like, okay, I'm not playing. I don't want to play that game. I don't want to play that game. I understand why it's there. I understand why it's written. I understand the plotness of it, but I have no interest. Because it's one note. There's nothing interesting about it. And the conflict between Faile and Berlain. Berlain's she's like the consort, essentially, the like queen-ish of somewhere. Again, I don't remember any of the names of the lands. I do remember them, but I don't remember which is what. So sorry. If you're in for research, it's not going to be here for me. But she's the first book she's in. Everything we get about her is like her tits were always out. Like she's always just like dressed like very provocatively and like putting her boobs in people's faces. And like that was just like how we got her. And then the more we've gotten of her, I'm like I have much more respect for that character than I do Faile. This is a person who, first of all, if she wants to have sex, great. That's so great. I'm not going to belittle her for putting her boobs out. That's phenomenal. I love that for you. But she's also has that, what I've kind of attributed in this last book of seeing her with like Ruark and how the respect she's gotten from other leaders. Mm-hmm. And her as this female has kind of had to play a game with what she has been given to her. It's very much the like Daisy Buchanan of like this. There's so many things that a lot of people, and Daisy Buchanan is my favorite character basically in all of literature. I think she's so much more deep than people think she is. And that's why like a character like her, especially a woman, a female in leadership, who also happens to be very, out and about with her sexuality in a way that has like, I think probably gotten her some things, and she's used what she's got to do to get what she wants. And I have respect for her, and the way that she's like not really even throwing herself at Perrin, but like a little bit. There's like, I guess you could say she's
just being hot in his.
She's
vicinity.
literally that. Thank you. She's just being hot in his presence, like truly. And yes, she is like very much she definitely thinks he's hot. She definitely wants to bone him.
He's got those shoulders.
He's got those shoulders, broad shoulders, baby. But there's like no actions that she's made that have been inappropriate in any way. And Faile has this reaction to her, which it just seems so like, I mean, she's young. I understand that as well. Again, like I said, I understand this as a plot device. I personally hate it. I just can't stand it. Because everything, she literally is like around the corner from Perrin, and Faile is like losing her mind and then like abusing him. And they both abuse each other. They are abusers. They suck. Anywho.
They both suck.
They suck. Perrin is an idiot. Faile is, I don't want to say trash, but...
But I'll just say it under my breath, and that makes it better.
I don't want to say trash. Not trash. I don't know. And maybe I obviously have changed my mind before. Maybe I'll change my mind again, but this...
It's going to be rough when you realize that the next book is all Faile POV. That's what the whole slog is. It's just Faile POVs.
I'm not reading
for like
it.
4 books
I can't
in a
do
row.
it. Well, but maybe, you know what, maybe I do need to read it, because I do need to get more in there.
Actually
I know, but I'm saying, like, I'm not, right
imagine?
now.
That'd be
I
crazy.
hate her. I think she sucks. And I just, like I said, I hate the, like, women against women, competitive, unnecessary jealousy. It's the worst. I like that, there's just, like, a few little things from this book that I like, noted that I like. Like, the maiden hand talk I find really interesting. I want to learn it. I want to know what they're saying. The Wilders, the Aes Sedai in Saladar, are talking about, like, they kind of, because Nynaeve is a Wilder, someone who'd figured out how to use the power without knowing she was using the power. And a lot of them have blocks because of it, because they're not actually, like, they're kind of stumbling into it. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, there was one of them that was like, yeah, well, they figured out that it was only when I was, like, had the hots for someone that it could, like, come out. And so they, like, put this guy in a room, and I was like, woo, here comes the power. And I thought that was really interesting, like, going throughout all the different dynamics. And everyone who thinks that they can teach Nynaeve, like, everyone thinks they're going to be the one to change her. Everyone thinks they're going to be the one to fix it. And I think that's very funny. There was another moment where when Rand gets shoved in the chest, poor Rand, and it was like loose there and fleas or something, and in my head I just pictured...
They cut him off from the power.
No? Yeah. And, sorry, I was confused what you were saying. I understand. He wasn't still, but they cut him off, yeah. And Lews Therin flees. And just because of Lews Therin's, like, character, where he's just either like, no, Ileana, or he's like, kill them. Or then he's like...
Or he's like,
that chick's hot.
Yeah.
Literally. So he's just like, to me, he's become this kind of cartoony character. So when he fled, I pictured the, like, Kermit, like, no! Which he probably was doing, so... But then they started kind of working together. They actually spoke to each other, which I thought was kind of creepy.
Well, I mean, if you're stuck in a box...
You're stuck in a box, who you got to talk to? This creepy guy in your head. So,
yeah, you thought he was mad before. Stick him in a box for a while.
Yeah,
and only take him out to beat him. And then...
Yeah, that whole scene, the ending scene was very tense. A lot of really interesting imagery of, like, Rand's Black Tower buddies coming out of a portal and helping him and, like, setting up the Shield of Air and all the Aiel, and how the Aiel were mad that they had to put a band. They had all the Aiel women that was on their side put on a red band and they were mad because they were like, surely you'll know. Like,
yes, surely you'll know. It's like, obvious, isn't it?
You're so right. Let's just take a precaution.
Just in case.
Because the Shido are with the bad Aiel, or the bad Aes Sedai, the ones who have trapped Rand. Yeah, so I thought the ending scene was really good. Yeah. I thought it was a epic, in an anxiety rising way. I definitely did.
Robert Jordan does a very good job of, like, writing books that lead to very climactic moments.
Yeah, very much so.
Some books have more of them than others, but most of them have at least one, and even if it's a very long book, you know that there will usually be at least one, like, really crazy event.
There's a lot of, like, interestingness of it. It's never just like, this is a battle. It's like, we are in the trees, and the lightning, and the air thing, and the, like, blah, which is intriguing and also sometimes overwhelming as someone who does like to picture things. I often struggle with the imagery because the imagery is so complex, and also
he does love very detailed descriptions.
Very detailed, but then also he'll get detailed, and I'm just like, okay, how you describe that doesn't work for me. Like, I don't actually know what you're going for. 100%. Yeah.
They'll view things differently in their minds, and I mean, like, the trade-off for having very detailed battle sequences is also, he loves to describe, like, the fabric that people are wearing.
See, I could get fabric. For me, it's always, the thing that I get caught on is the, like, even just down to Rand getting shoved in a box. Was like, there was something about, like, his knees were there and and I was, at first I thought he was, like, laid in a box, his head between his knees, and I just was like, wait a minute, what does this box look like? Like, there was, we kept getting descriptions of it, and they were slightly different as, like, as you're getting more and more and more, and I had an idea in my head, and then I got another description, I was like, I think I did that wrong. Okay. And it's similar in the battle, too. Like, there's a lot of that imagery that I think trips me up because I am trying to have a specific image, and he'll come in with, like, description, battle scene, more description of this particular thing, and I've just learned to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the entire thing. That's it. You don't need to. You take what you want out of it, and then leave the rest.
Thanks, Robby.
Yeah, I love you. You're great. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. So I did it.
As long as you're having fun, that's all that matters.
I am having fun. I like my friends.
Yeah, and imagine the fact that you're only 6 books in, and you have.
Which is actually crazy.
8 more to, like, have more things happen to these characters.
A little too many. But
we'll get there.
Well, and I'm also nervous because, like, the more you have, the more things are going to change.
Yes,
like,
that's
I don't
life.
want my friends to disappoint me, but that's okay.
That's life. She already disappointed you.
I know, but I'm saying, like, that's the more that happens, the more I establish,
What happens if I start hating this character?
Yeah, but you know what? That's like you said, that's life. I mean, and I would rather read something like that than something that's one note. I would rather read something that's realistic human experience in a magical world than something that is what we want it to be. Sure. I would rather be able to relate to a character on a deep level than just have a, surface level time. Anywho.
So, what do you want to rate it out of?
I was going to say the box.
I actually was going to say the exact same thing, so I can find the biggest, dumbest box I can put.
The chest tub out?
No, we're going to put a box. It's going to be a stupid looking box, too, because I think that's funny.
Okay.
How many boxes out of 5 would you give this?
I'm going to give it 4.5. I had a lot of fun reading this one.
I was also going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I like this one a lot. I think you're right that, like, the Perrin and Faile stuff is not fun, but,
It was a very small portion of this book.
Yeah, you get a lot of Rand in this book, and you're right, Rand is going through a lot of growth, and I do think that, like, the work that Robert Jordan does in this book to, continue his transformation, but also showing how, like, proficient he has become or starting to become at, like, leading people, and like trying to take his own agency.
hey guys, I got this cool name.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
he's
saying.
still a kid. He's still a kid.
But he is like also creating these things, and he's just dealing with the power and the responsibility that's been thrust on him, and you know, and I again love that scene with Nynaeve, and you know, I honestly when I was making sure that I remembered all the details about this book, I was like, I can't believe that Egwene becomes the Amyrlin seat already. Like,
and her
it's such a big, and her sexy dream. It's such like a big moment. Like, there are some really big scenes in this one that I'm just like,
we're like halfway-ish through, so it makes sense that some big stuff's happening.
It just felt like that was like a much later thing. I don't know, but you know, memory is imperfect and flawed. But 4.5 out of 5 for me as well. I think it's a great one.
Boxes. Grand.
Well, that's the end.
The Lord of Chaos.
That's the end of our thoughts on the Lord of Chaos. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your favorite parts of the book?
Did you change your mind on any characters whilst you read this?
Yeah. How do you feel about Faile? Yeah. No spoilers, please, in the chat too.
Who's your favorite? Right now, it's Egwene.
Mine is Matt. I've read the whole
series.
Yeah,
no, that makes sense. Yeah, Matt is your guy. Matt is your humor.
I just like Matt. I think his sense of humor works for me. Please like and subscribe to watch our other Wheel of Time videos. You can find a link to the playlist with the rest of the videos for this if you haven't watched them yet, either in the description below or above my head right here. And otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and
we'll see you on our next adventure.